going on, everybody? I'm Christina, and welcome back to another Nerd Grid production. I'm doing another recap of yet another one of my favorite Netflix shows, and this one is going to be a two-parter. This video is going to focus on season 1 of Castlevania, and the next episode is going to focus on season 2. And right off rip, before I go any further, I'm just going to get the fact out of the way that I didn't actually play any of the Castlevania games growing up. I knew people who had the games, cousins and neighbor kids. I had kind of a general idea of what it was that the games entailed, what they were about. But that was pretty much it. So with that being the case, it wasn't like the franchise was something that was situated at the forefront of my mind, especially not as I got older. That's probably why my interest was so piqued when I saw back in July of 2017 that it had been adapted into a series for Netflix. But looking back on it, maybe I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was, because Netflix will adapt damn near anything if you let them. In any case, I think something else that drew me in was the actual title card on the main Netflix menu. One glance told me that the series looked very anime-esque in design, and a couple seconds into actually starting the show, you see that. That's something I'll touch on before I go any further. From a look standpoint, the show is beautifully made. Despite the fact that all the production takes place in the United States, the art style borrows very heavily from anime and from the design of the Castlevania video games. So yeah, I got immediately sucked into the show pretty much right after it premiered, and then wound up super heated because A, season 1 is only 4 episodes, and B, they're only about 25-ish minutes apiece. So the audacity, the nerve, the unmitigated gall to make a show this good and then have a season be that short. I wonder whose idea that was. Over a year later, in October 2018, we got an expanded season of 8 episodes, and it was well worth the wait. And despite how bitter I was that I had to wait that long for season 2, I will admit I did think it was cute that it dropped around Halloween. And yeah, I did binge watch that in the week leading up to it because I'm festive trash and it fit and it was perfect for that time of year. So, rolling right into season 1. The first episode, the title card shows us that we're throwing it all the way back to the year 1455 in Wallachia, which is a region in Romania. There's this really pretty blonde chick named Lisa, who is apparently dead set on becoming a doctor. She knows exactly who the fuck she's gonna go to in order to gain advanced knowledge of medicine. Goddamn Dracula. Who would have guessed? It's worth mentioning that he does kind of try to be menacing when Lisa first shows up, but she's super unfazed. It's absolutely hilarious. She basically just waltzes into this giant castle and chastises him for not having manners, saying that he's a shitty host because he didn't offer her a drink or offer to take her coat. So yeah, I'm in love with her. Given that people back at this point in time were really stupid and thought that anything they didn't understand was witchcraft, Lisa mentions that people back home think she's a witch for wanting to pursue medicine. And this is why the Black Plague almost wiped these morons out, because they thought medicine was black magic. Dumbasses. Anyway, Dracula and Lisa strike a deal. Vlad will educate Lisa on the subject of medicine, and she'll help him learn to want to deal with humanity. And Lisa thinks that traveling is a good way for Vlad to see that people can actually be good. So that's what he does. He starts going on trips and traveling. 20 years go by and we jump ahead to the year 1475. And in the interim between them first meeting and jumping ahead 20 years, Vlad and Lisa have fallen in love and gotten married. And that makes what happens next even more sad, because this shit's about to get dark. And while Vlad is away traveling on one of his trips, in the town of Targovishta, Lisa is burned at the stake after the bishop discovers scientific equipment in her house and has her publicly accused of witchcraft. And as Dracula returns home to see that his home has been burned down and his wife is missing, a neighbor, a nice old lady who mentions that Lisa helped her out when she was sick, tells him what happened. And he tells her, all right, look, you leave Wallachia tonight and don't come back because some bad shit's about to happen. And At this point, Dracula appears in the same cathedral where his wife was just publicly murdered and tells the people of Wallachia that they have a year to make their peace and get the fuck out of Dodge before he pops back up. And after this announcement is made, Dracula and Lisa's son Adrian confronts his dad and tells him that it would make more sense to just go after the people that are directly responsible for his mother's death. You know, go after the church or whoever the fuck. But in his current mental state, Dracula's not really in the position to be a reasonable person, and he attacks Adrian. We see blood, but it cuts to black, so we don't know how bad it actually turned out for Adrian. And a year passed, we jump ahead to 1476. As you can probably guess, the people of Targovista did not quite heed Dracula's warning. They're like celebrating in the cathedral, basically commemorating the 1-year anniversary of murdering an innocent woman, and they feel like they're also commemorating the fact that Dracula's a liar. So they're kind of rubbing salt in the wound. And while this little celebration is taking place, the sky gets really cloudy. It's black and red. That should have tipped them off, if nothing else. It starts raining blood. The ground starts to shake, and the cathedral's destroyed. The archbishop is killed, and Dracula appears in a fiery vision in the sky, and he's like, look, I told y'all what was going to happen. You didn't pack up and leave. Now you're all going to die. These little creatures, little alien-looking things, start falling from the sky. And at first they kind of just hit the ground and lay there, but then they turn into giant bat demon things with wings, and they start flying around, fucking shit up. And it's nasty. They're like decapitating people, ripping them in half, ripping off limbs. There's blood everywhere. It's gross. But this is pretty much what Dracula told them what would happen, and nobody listened. So, sucks to suck. At this point, it cuts away to a pub, and the pub is not in the city. It looks like it's a little bit out of the way, maybe out in the countryside or something. And there are some guys inside discussing what they think the cause of all of this is. And you'll see that that's going to kind of become a recurring thing, is that none of these people are blaming the church. None of these people are blaming the archbishop. They're not doing that. They're not blaming the bishop either. People passing off blame when it comes to shit they don't understand is something that's going to happen more than once over the course of these 4 episodes. And while these dudes are sitting in the bar having this conversation, there's a guy who runs in, presumably he ran all the way from Targovista, saying that the hordes are coming in that general direction. And I guess ringleader of the guys mentions that he thinks that the noble families of Wallachia are to blame for everything that's going on. Not really sure why. But the family that he name drops specifically is the Belmont clan. At this point, the camera cuts over to show this dude sitting in the corner, who is our alcoholic hero, Trevor Belmont. And that's our first glance of him. And episode 2 picks up in the same pub. Trevor is kind of trying to lay low. He just wants to drink and be left alone. And when he goes up to the bar to actually pay for his alcohol, when he reaches in to grab his money, the ringleader of the group of drunk dudes sees a Belmont family crest inside of his coat. And he starts pressing Trevor, and then they all fight. Trevor is in, I don't know, like a 4-on-1 handicap match. To his credit, he does get some licks in, but he also gets his ass beat. So we're going to call this one a wash, because he didn't lose, but he definitely did not definitively win either. It could have been worse. It definitely could have been worse. But in his current predicament, Trevor can't exactly stay where he's at right now. And it's also interesting, over the course of that fight, we do get some background on who exactly the Belmont family was. Like Lisa, they were persecuted by the church for dealing in what the church and a lot of people believed was black magic. They were classified as evil because they, quote-unquote, dealt with monsters. But really, the Belmonts hunted monsters on some Van Helsing type shit. And the Belmonts kept people safe, but wound up being excommunicated from the church and having their land seized. So since Trevor has to pretty much go anywhere but where he is now, he travels overnight and ends up looking for food and shelter in the city of Grezit. And during the daytime in Grezit, shit is pretty much fine. But at nighttime, every night, Dracula's hordes come over the wall and fuck shit up. So as Trevor is passing through town and talking to some of the townspeople, He learns that many of them blame a group of magic users known as the Speakers for the fact that they get attacked every night. And again, the Speakers they use magic. They're pretty much magic nomads. They kind of drift from place to place, but they've settled in Gresham for the time being because they feel like the people in Gresham need their help. So it's pretty fucked up that a lot of these people think that all of this is their fault when they really just showed up to help. Trevor continues on his little journey through the town, and he happens upon a couple of corrupt priests accosting an old man. They're gonna kill the dude, and so Trevor intervenes. One of the priests loses an eye, the other one loses a finger, and the old man informs Trevor that he is the elder of the Speakers. He's their leader. And Trevor insists, after everything that he's heard, that the elder take his people and leave town. But the elder refuses, not only because he feels like the Speakers still have more work to do in Gresham, but also because his grandchild is missing. So in his gratitude, he invites Trevor back to the home where the Speakers are staying. And Trevor learns that the Speaker's grandchild went into the catacombs underneath the city of Gresham in search of someone called the Sleeping Soldier, who is apparently a legendary hero that they believe can defeat Dracula. And because Trevor wants the Speakers to get out of town and be safely that badly, he agrees to go and find the Elder's grandchild on the condition that if he does, the Speakers will leave the city. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think the Speakers ever had plans of actually doing that. They have their hearts set, again, on helping these people, even after Trevor tells them that the church and some of the townspeople are planning to kill them that night before nightfall, before presumably the hordes of Dracula can attack again. And the Speakers aren't scared to die, so you really can't throw a fact like that in the faces of people who don't fear death. Episode 3 picks up right where we left off, with Trevor exploring the catacombs underneath the city. He was underneath the impression that the Elder's grandchild was dead, so he thinks he's down here to recover a body. And I know Trevor is a little bit of an odd duck, but I want to know what he thought it would have looked like if he was dragging a body to the outskirts of town. I don't think he thought that through. Anyway, after walking down there for a while and looking around, Trevor finds some things that make it very clear to him that somebody was down here fairly recently. He finds like a torch that was recently lit and things like that make him believe someone else has been down there. And after looking around some more, he also sees that descriptions of machinery and devices down there match things that his great-grandfather had transcribed as looking like shit that was inside of Dracula's castle. So that obviously piques Trevor's interest. Trevor finds a stone statue that looks like a speaker, and as he's distracted by this, a Cyclops tries to attack him. And apparently this Cyclops turns people to stone if it zaps them, so that's kind of interesting. Trevor kills the Cyclops, which releases its curse, and the statue isn't a statue at all. It is Sypha Belnades, who is the Elder's grandchild. And Trevor ends up telling her exactly what he told her grandfather, that it would be best if the Speakers left town ASAP, but she's reluctant to leave without finding the Sleeping Soldier. Trevor doesn't even think this person actually exists. And after returning Sypha to her grandpa, Trevor goes back into town to get food, but in the process of trying to do this, he runs into the same priest that he sunned earlier. And sidebar, I don't know what kind of inflated sense of self-importance it takes to run back up on the dude who took off one of your fingers and took out one of your friend's eyes. I need that kind of self-esteem. But then again, nobody said these dudes were smart. And the priest ends up telling him that he's been summoned to the church by the local bishop. And once the shot cuts inside of the church, you see that it's the same dude who was the bishop of Targoviste. And he was the one who ordered Lisa's execution. So this dude basically relocated after all that shit went down, and now he's come to be a dickbag in another city. I am so tired of him already. He tells Trevor to leave Gresham before sundown, because they're basically going to lead a lynch mob to kill the Speakers. And he tries to lean on Trevor with some leverage, saying that not only will he let him live, but he'll restore his family name in exchange. Because again, the Belmonts were excommunicated from the church and had all their land seized. Trevor basically and predictably tells the dude to go fuck himself. And with the speakers refusing to leave town, Trevor hides them in the Cyclops' chamber. Well, can I call it the Cyclops' chamber? Because the Cyclops isn't down there anymore. It's basically an underground bunker. They'll be safe there. The priests show up and kick in the door of the speaker's home looking for them. And they press Trevor and insist that he's going to die for nothing, for people that he barely knows. But now, sounding very speaker-esque in his convictions, Trevor says that dying has never scared him. It was the idea of not standing up to people like them that frightened him. So he deals with the priest. I think like 4 of them die because he drops a bunch of heavy stones from the roof of the speaker's house on them. So they're probably dead of like blunt force trauma or something. But he outruns the mob, gets back into the cities, and links up with the speakers. And the lynch mob should look out, though, because the sun is now down and Dracula's forces are ready to fuck the city up again. At the beginning of episode 4, we find ourselves with the horde flying overhead, ready to descend upon Greshit. And at this point, we get one of my favorite scenes of the series so far. The bishop is chilling in the cathedral, happy because he's under the impression that the speakers are dead. So it's not even crossing his mind that the horde might be back in the city that night. Somehow, I think this man is deaf. Somehow he doesn't hear a few of the demons come into the church. And this is the first time we ever hear any of them talk. The exchange has the bishop super shook. The demon basically informs him, like, we wouldn't even be here if not for you. And then they kill him. So that dude has been 86, thank God. He had it coming. As Trevor continues to make his escape, he's pretty much cornered by the mob, and shit looks pretty dire for him until Sypha appears out of nowhere to help him. And she reveals herself as not just a speaker, but she's a very powerful magic user. She's very good at what she does. Trevor calls out the priest with 9 fingers and exposes the clergy's actions as the true reason for Dracula's invasion. And at that point, a bunch of the members of the lynch mob kill that priest. So they finally did something right for a change. He then assists the people in mounting a defense against the demons. He essentially coaches the villagers on what to do, and they start taking out demons 3 or 4 at a time. They're lobbing holy water at them, they're wiping swords in salt and chopping them in half. It's dope. During the battle, however, the ground crumbles underneath Trevor and Sypha, and they fall into the catacombs. They end up falling in way deeper than they had been previously when Trevor rescued Sypha. They journey even further inside of the catacombs, where they actually find the sleeping soldier, who is revealed to be Adrian, Dracula and Lisa's son. And he spent a year recovering from that fight that he had with his father that we only saw a split second of. And when he comes out of his coffin, you can actually see like a giant slash, basically like from his chest all the way down his torso. So his dad fucked him up. It kind of Nas is gonna appreciate this. That giant like X that's across Luffy's chest, it's like half of that. It's just a diagonal going down his midsection. Adrian, who's now going by Alucard, ends up fighting with Trevor. And let's be reminded, Trevor didn't think the sleeping soldier existed in the first place. And even after Trevor and Sypha have seen Alucard, he's skeptical. He's under the impression that Alucard is just another vampire. And he knows that he's only been in the catacombs for a year. Matter of fact, Trevor initially is under the impression that Alucard is Dracula. And the two of them end up fighting because Trevor fights with everyone. But after seeing his and Sypha's resolve, Alucard relents and tells them who he actually is. Apparently, the legend of the sleeping soldier also says that the savior in question is supposed to be met by a hunter and a scholar. And that's what these 3 look like to me. Alucard is well aware of the fact that his father has to die, and he knows that the 3 of them can make that happen if they want to save Wallachia. And that is where season 1 ends. It ends kind of abruptly, but again, like I said, it's only 4 episodes, and they're less than half an hour each as far as the runtime goes. It does end with Trevor, Alucard, and Sypha having a general idea of what they have to do, but having further to go before they actually can accomplish their mission. Season 1 did a good job. Too good of a job of getting me sucked into this show with how short it was. That's literally my only complaint. I have nothing else to complain about aside from the fact that there wasn't enough of it. Aside from that, I loved everything. Like I said at the beginning, I love how the show looks, and the anime aesthetic had me hooked right from the beginning. all of the actors are absolutely A1. There's fantastic voice acting in the show. And the character development speed run that Trevor underwent from episode 1 to episode 4 was funnier to me than it should have been. And in season 2, we'll follow our heroes as they embark on their journey to save Wallachia from Dracula, and we'll actually see a lot more of Dracula himself in the next season. So there will be lots more Dracula to talk about in my next video. But as it stands now, that's all I've got for season 1 of Castlevania. I will see you guys next time. As always, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you never miss anything that the Nerd Grid puts out. And I will see you guys next time.